Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Radha Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. तो श्री राधे गोलोकानंद भगवान की
जय.
Good to see everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, 11:40.
Yeah. So we'll start, Prabhuji?
Yes, we should.
Okay. Manyase yadi tachakram maya drishtumiti prabho yogeshwar tato me tvam darsayatmana avyayam. If you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that unlimited universal self.
Yeah. Okay. So here Arjuna is asking the question, or is making this request that I really want to see this form. Okay. It is said that one can neither see, hear, understand, nor perceive the Supreme Lord Krishna by the material senses. But if one is engaged in loving transcendental service to the Lord from the beginning, then one can see the Lord by revelation. Every living entity is only a spiritual spark. Therefore, it is not possible to see or to understand the Supreme Lord. Arjuna, as a devotee, does not depend on his speculative strength. Rather, he admits his limitations as a living entity and acknowledges Krishna's inestimable position. Okay. Unlimited.
Arjuna could understand that for a living entity it is not possible to understand the unlimited infinite. If the infinite reveals himself, then it is possible to understand the nature of the infinite by the grace of the infinite. The word Yogeshwara is also very significant here because the Lord has inconceivable power. If he likes, he can reveal himself by his grace, although he is unlimited. That's it. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Therefore, Arjuna pleads for the inconceivable grace of Krishna. He does not give Krishna orders. Krishna is not obliged to reveal himself unless one surrenders fully in Krishna consciousness and engages in devotional service. Thus, it is not possible for persons who depend on the strength of their mental speculation to see Krishna.
This is a wonderful purport because it contains a whole broad range of information about Krishna consciousness, and it goes well with the question, or with the request actually, that Arjuna is making here. I'd like to see this form if you think that I am able to behold it. Now, does anybody have a comment or a question before we take a look at this commentary by Prabhupada sentence by sentence practically?
We can also do
Yeah.
sign 25 and 11.
Yeah, we can jump in there in a minute. There are also some other verses that relate to this too that Rudrani will bring in a minute or two. Well, Prabhupada jumps in right away here and basically states what should be clear to everyone, that with material senses, we cannot perceive in any way the Supreme Lord, who is a spiritual personality. We can't see or hear or understand in any way Krishna. He's beyond our, it's like trying to hear with your tongue. If you stick your tongue out, you're not going to hear any better, because your tongue just doesn't do it. So we don't have the senses that can actually understand or relate to the Supreme Personality of God, because he's spiritual. But then a key is given here. But if one is engaged in loving transcendental service to the Lord from the beginning, then one can see the Lord by, what's the word there?
Revelation.
Revelation. What do we mean by revelation?
Yes, it's basically the Lord will reveal himself in
Right.
the
Exactly.
Yeah.
He reveals, we don't reveal it. It's somehow or other that Krishna gives us the clue. It's like you're trying to get into a door, you can't get in because you don't have the keys. Someone comes by and says, well, here's the key, and bingo, you're in the door, because he has the key. The key is Krishna gives us the key when he sees that we're sincerely engaging in service. You want to bring those two verses in?
Yeah.
There's two verses that relate to this point that Rudrani wants to read.
Okay, the first verse is from chapter 7, verse 25 of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying, when he reveals himself, when he doesn't reveal himself. 7:25. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudayam nabijanati lokamam ajam avyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So for those people who are not qualified, he'll never reveal himself. First of all, because they don't want to see him. Secondly, because they may not believe in him. And thirdly, because they're completely bewildered by matter. And so he's not going to force himself on anyone by showing himself. Only the pure-hearted ones will be the ones capable of seeing him whenever the Supreme Lord chooses to reveal himself to them. And there's another verse, which is chapter 9, verse 11. You can read that.
Avajananti mamudha manush tanum ashritam param bhavam ajanato mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So again, the word fool is used, and in places there it's also called, it's where Prabhupada says unintelligent. But we should know something about this, that the fool doesn't mean that these people are just like idiots in the street, and unintelligent doesn't mean they're just like stupid people. It means persons who don't have the spiritual intelligence, and they act in ways which are against their best interest, which is foolishly, thinking they know more than they do. So really it refers to persons whose intelligence isn't spiritual intelligence, but it's material intelligence. Again, it's like having the wrong senses to perceive the Lord. So here it's stated that when Krishna comes, persons who just don't have the intelligence, that is spiritual intelligence, they can't understand. And if we go back to the verse where we're on, 11:4, Prabhupada goes on to say, he says, every living entity is only a spiritual spark. Does anyone know what size the soul is described to be?
9 inches.
Very, very small. It's sometimes given, there is a metaphorical description of the size of the soul that Prabhupada would use. Oftentimes he would say it was the size of
the tip of the hair,
One-
some portion, one 10,000 or
Yeah,
something.
1/10,000th tip, which is to say you aren't going to measure that.
Yeah.
Because again, that's, hairs are different sizes and we don't want to get into those details, but the idea being so small. Every living entity is only a spiritual spark. Therefore, it is not possible to see or to understand the Supreme Lord. And it goes on to say that Arjuna, as a devotee, what does he do that makes him qualified to see Krishna?
He surrendered.
He surrendered.
That's line at number 9 or 10.
Yeah, but he is surrendered. But it says
he also acknowledges Krishna's position, right? He
acknowledges Krishna's position,
Yes.
and he knows that he'll never be able to speculate about that. Because Krishna's, he's beyond speculation. Even materially, suppose, we took 3 or 4 bars from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and we fed it into a computer and said, what does the rest of the symphony sound like? And the computer, really big computer, analyzed those bars and used all its logic it could to figure out what the rest of that 72-minute symphony would sound like. It wouldn't be able to figure it out through its speculation.
And this is a
And that's a material, just a symphony.
Example, yeah.
That's a 72-minute piece of music. And that's using a computer, which do a lot better than our brain. So the point being is that how will we ever be able to understand God on our own power? So we have to admit our limitations. And that's humility on our part.
One has to be submissive and non-envious towards Krishna then.
Submissive and non-envious. Very good point. Bill? Yeah.
That leaves open the question of what's a fool to do? Because most of us, practically all of us, are in the position of being enormously separated from divinity, and we're the deluded people for most part. They're not really separate from us. I mean, that's the situation we find ourselves in. But there's this art. There's this term called storming heaven, where the aspirant does whatever method he can figure out to have at least a moment of being in the divine presence, whether it's being with Jesus or being with Krishna or being, having visions of whatever, but to have this exalted temporary state that you're not really pure enough to assimilate or get on, and of course you crash back down afterwards because that's the nature of storming heaven. But there is a place in the spiritual art for that, and in a sense, sort of a style of what Arjuna is doing, because Arjuna also is not pure enough to stay in that exalted state.
Arjuna's a pure devotee.
But Arjuna's pure.
He's a pure devotee.
Arjuna's pure, but in a sense, the amount of energy that we can withstand, that our nervous system can withstand in these very high experiences,
Bill,
has to be increased.
Ronnie wants to answer your question. I think she's got the answer. Here we are.
Okay, the first part of the question is, what can a fool do, right?
Yes.
It really depends on the desire that he may have, because Jesus said, seek and you shall find, but first you have to seek. If one doesn't have a desire to seek because he's too involved with material engagements, he'll never have the desire to seek. I'm talking about spiritual truths. And so the first point is that as soon as we desire to find out, immediately there is a response. Depending on our degree of interest, there is accordingly that kind of response. As far as those who have peak experiences, those peak experiences make one realize that there is another reality, that this is so amazing, there is another reality. And then they must, at that point, they may start seeking that reality. And the more they seek, the more they will find, depending on what they are seeking. If they are seeking something to gratify themselves, even at the higher level, they'll find that. But if they're seeking the answer to who am I and who is the absolute truth, or what is the absolute truth, that answer will also come. So it depends on the individual. It's our desire. If we desire to find out, Krishna will manifest gradually answers.
And Lord Chaitanya, he was asked when he was in Varanasi, Benares, he was a young sannyasi, and he was asked by this very, very great sannyasi named Prakasananda Saraswati. He said, "Why are you just dancing in the street with people and you're just singing in kirtan?" And he said, "Well, my spiritual master said I was a fool, and all I could do," of course he's not a fool, he's God, but but all you can do is chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we chant the Maha Mantra with sincerity, Krishna will help us, and that's what all of us fools can do. We can do that, and we follow Lord Chaitanya, who took the part like that, but he certainly isn't. Yes.
And also we're reading from a book by Gaur Govinda Maharaj, extremely advanced devotee who left the world some years back.
25.
About 25 years ago, actually. Very, very advanced devotee and very close associate of Srila Prabhupada. He was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And in his book, he explains how Lord Chaitanya is imbuing the holy name with Krishna Prema, which is something that is extraordinary. Not only the holy name is so glorious because it's Krishna himself, but he is threading it with absolute pure love for the Supreme Lord. So the chanting of the holy name, if it is done purely, and of course it takes time to purify ourselves, at that point, it can give us the absolute goal, which is love of God. So how important it is to chant the holy name.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, for your question. Any other questions? There are a couple more things we could say about this purport. Therefore, Arjuna pleads for the inconceivable grace of Krishna. This is a good point that Gajendra is highlighting here, because Krishna is Yogeshvara. He's the master of all yogic power, and he can reveal himself anytime if he chooses. And therefore Arjuna realizes, I need Krishna's mercy, and he can't give God orders. Mm-hmm. You can't say, I demand to see you. He doesn't have to show himself. So we just have to become Krishna conscious. It's real simple. That's why Prabhupada liked that term, Krishna conscious. Think of Krishna and he thinks of us. Any other questions or comments?
That's the next.
We can go to the next text. This one's a little simpler.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Pashyame Parth Rupani Shatasho Atha Sahasrashah Nana Vidhani Divyani Nana Vanar Kritini Cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjun, O son of Pritha, see now my opulences, hundreds of thousands of very divine and multicolored forms. Deva? Deva?
Yes. Arjun wanted to see Krishna in his universal form. which, although a transcendental form, is just manifested for the cosmic manifestation and is therefore subject to the temporary time of this material nature. As the material nature is manifested and not manifested, similarly, this universal form of Krishna is manifested and non-manifested.
Manish Prabhu?
It is not eternally situated in the spiritual sky like Krishna's other forms. As far as the devotee is concerned, he is not eager to see the universal form. But because Arjuna wanted to see Krishna in this way, Krishna reveals this form. This universal form is not possible to be seen by any ordinary man. Krishna must give one the power to see it.
Any questions or thoughts?
To see the divine, we need a divine vision.
Divine vision. Very important point that he gives divine vision. And I've heard it, though, described in one class, and I can't remember who gave the class right now, but Krishna gave Arjuna the divine vision so he could see the universal form, but he didn't give him the divine heart in the sense, because he didn't want him he wanted him to see the universal form, but not to become attached to the universal form as like demigods might be attached. Not to have, he wanted him to have that temporary view, but be able to always go back to see him in his original form. Because sometimes people think that this temporary form is more important than the supreme form. And what came to mind when I was reading this purport was this. And this is an analogy we can all understand. Every day we live in a world of 3 dimensions, and we have a family, a wife, kids, husband, job, car, and we're living in all this 3-dimensional world. It's the real world. But occasionally in this real world, we decide to buy a ticket and go to a movie. And we sit down in this movie and it lasts for 2.5 hours. It's very engaging. We sit in one particular place and it comes and it goes and it ends and we leave and we go back to the real world. So this universal form is like a movie. It's Krishna's movie. He's saying, here you are, I'm going to show you this movie. And it's got all these special effects and it's got all these sounds and it's a blockbuster video. I mean, it's great, but it's just a movie. It's not the real thing. I'm the projector. You know, the guy who's running the projection machine, he's the real person, not the movie. So Krishna is the projector, and he's sending this movie out, and he wants Arjuna to see all these things just to show us that, you know, how much greater is the projector, the person, not the machine, the projector, but the runner runs the machine, than the movie itself.
And also it is interesting because it says there in the purport that this is not a form that is eternally situated in the spiritual.
Right. Yeah.
Does not exist in the spiritual realm. It's a form of the cosmic manifestation that Krishna is showing, but this form doesn't exist in the spiritual world. Only one can see it in this immaterial world, provided that he has the divine vision that has been given to him or her by Krishna. This was happening here. And there is a reason why Arjuna wants to see this form. We'll see in a minute.
Any other thoughts, questions? There's a lot of visual, very big, powerful images in this chapter. I guess we can go to verse 6.
Most people
Pashyaditanava sunrudran ashvino parutastata bahunya drishta purvani paschakshashayani bharata. O best of the Bharats, see here the different manifestations of Adits, Vasus, Rudras, Ashwini Kumars, and all the other demigods. Behold the many wonderful things which no one has ever seen or heard of before. Sonali?
Thank you.
What?
Even though Arjuna was a personal friend of Krishna and the most advanced of learned men, it was still not possible for him to know everything about Krishna. Here it is stated that humans have neither heard nor known of all these forms and manifestations. Now Krishna reveals these wonderful forms.
Nobody's ever seen it before. So Krishna wants to show it to us through Arjuna.
Remember that Duryodhana has seen a partial.
Yeah, of course, you can say. Duryodhana had seen a partial manifestation, but he didn't believe it. Because when Krishna came before the battle of Kurukshetra to negotiate peace with the Kurus, and he went to the palace where Duryodhana was staying, and Duryodhana got the smart idea that he would tie Krishna up and arrest him. But when he went to do that, Krishna showed, he manifested at least a part of this universal form, which blew everybody's mind, and Duryodhana basically said, "You're just a cheap magician," and that's because he's a demon. But the demons will always discount Krishna in any form they can because they want to exalt themselves. Sometimes the demigods make mistakes, but they always remember that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demon will always try to fight that.
He wants to be Krishna, like Pandraka.
Yeah, like Pandraka. Yes, of course. Vasudeva Pandraka, who became the armed form of Vishnu by attaching rubber arms to his shoulders. I don't know if they had rubber in those days, but something.
Some fake arms.
Some fake arms. So here Gajendra's highlighted the manifestations of the Adityas, the Vasus, the Rudras, and the Ashvini Kumars. These are different gods or demigods. These are different manifestations that no human would, we don't see them, but because we're not qualified. But here Arjuna is being shown this so we can see that with the eyes of Arjuna, we could actually see all these personalities.
Anything that exists in the cosmos, we were reading another commentary, anything that exists in the cosmic environment, he could see. In other words, he had access to seeing everything that is in the material world. And we're talking about all the universes, not just this universe, much less this land, this planet or the land of Bharat-Varsha. So he could see anything and everything that is a cosmic manifestation, material cosmic manifestation of the Supreme.
And the Rudras, of course, are manifestations of Lord Shiva, and the Adityas refer to the demigods, the sun god in particular. Well,
headed by the sun god,
And so these are the different, Ashvini Kumaras are the heavenly physicians, and the Vasus are? I can't remember. Anyway, so any other questions or thoughts? Okay, let's do verse 7. These verses go rather quickly because the purports are short.
Oh, here it is. It is. Yeah, verse 7.
Ihekastatham jagat krishnam paschatya sachiracharam mam dehe kudakesha yachanyada drishtumichyasi. O Arjun, whatever you wish to see, behold at once in this body of mine. This universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future. Everything moving and non-moving is here completely in one place. Nishant?
Hare Krishna. No one can see the entire universe while sitting in one place. Even the most advanced scientist cannot see what is going on in other parts of the universe. But a devotee like Arjuna can see everything that exists in any part of the universe. Krishna gives him the power to see anything he wants to see, past, present, and future. Thus, by the mercy of Krishna, Arjuna is able to see everything. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any modern scientists out there?
Oh, don't get me started.
But you won't disagree to this. I mean, it's really true. No one can see the entire universe sitting in one place. I mean, you know, we sit here with our, you know, our different devices, and we have expanded our vision. I mean, you know, the Hubble telescope has helped us see more stuff, but no one can really tend to see everything because we can only see so far, and then we find out that there's dark matter and dark energy, and then we realize that, you know, we're not able to see this or that. And
But one thing I want to point out is that with these massive telescopes, we can see amazing things very far away, but we can only see the past. And the further away we look, the further back in past it is. And we can see all the way back to 300,000 years after the Big Bang. With our eyes, we can detect this stuff now, but we can't see the present. We can't see what's going on now, and we certainly can't see the future. So we're extremely tiny little slice of the pie that we see in extraordinary detail, but it's an amazingly partial picture.
Dinesh, you want to say something?
Sorry?
No, it's just a little volume picks up the yeah.
Imagine you're sitting in your house on your couch and your front door is open and you can just see through your front door and cars whiz by and you see a person walk by, and then you can say, I've seen the whole city. All you see is a little slice right in front of your front door. And you may see a couple kids ride bikes by, or you'll see a car, or you'll see a bird fly. But what do you see? We see just a little tiny slice. This is what the scientists are seeing through all their, equipment. But Arjuna could see everything. And just like these sages, like Vyasadeva, he was able to see everything in meditation so that he could write the entire Bhagavatam. So he had imagine just a complete grasp of reality, every bit, 100%, through transcendental reality, which includes material and spiritual, everything included. So it's kind of like, you know, we're in a dark room. We've got our little $1 flashlight trying to find things around, and then somebody comes and flips a light on and says, now you can see. That's the difference.
Yeah, now you can search on Google at least the history of only this planet.
Yeah, Google uses this word, which is based upon the word Gogol, which is means unlimited, and it's, you know, they think they're very the word for an unlimited number was Google, spelled differently, but that's where they stole that, changed the spelling for probably copyright purposes.
Interesting. Do we do one more?
Do we have time to do 8? I think so. 8's got a little long. No, 8's got a long purport, but we can start.
We can read it.
Yeah, we can start. We may have to comment on it next week, but we can start.
Na tu mam sakyase drishtu mane neva swachakshusha divyam dadami te chakshuha pashyame yogameshwaram. But you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. Bill, read.
Bill?
Me? Oh, yes. A pure devotee does not like to see Krishna in any form except his form with 2 hands. A devotee must see his universal form by his grace, not with the mind, but with spiritual eyes. To see the universal form of Krishna, Arjuna is told not to change his mind, but his vision. the universal form of Krishna is not very important. That will be clear in subsequent verses. Yet because Arjuna wanted to see it, the Lord gives him the particular vision required to see that universal form.
Sejal Mataji.
Devotees who are correctly situated in a transcendental relationship with Krishna are attracted by loving features, not by a godless display of opulences. The playmates of Krishna, the friends of Krishna, and the parents of Krishna never want Krishna to show his opulences. They are so immersed in pure love that they do not even know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Savitaji.
In their loving exchange, they forget that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the boys who play with Krishna are all highly pious souls, and after many, many births, they are able to play with Krishna. Such boys do not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Parag.
They take him as a personal friend. Therefore, Sukhdev Goswami recites this verse. Itham satam brahma sukhana bhutiya dasyam gatanam paradaivaitana maya sritanam naradarakena sakam vijahru krita punya punjaha. Here is the Supreme Person who is considered the impersonal Brahman by great sages, the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotees, and a product of material nature by ordinary men. Now these boys who have performed many, many pious activities in their past lives are playing with that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 12, 11.
The fact is that the devotee is not concerned with seeing the Vishwaroop, the universal form, but Arjun wanted to see it to substantiate Krishna's statement so that in the future people could understand that Krishna not only theoretically or philosophically presented himself as the supreme, but actually presented himself as such to Arjun. Arjuna must confirm this because Arjun is the beginning of the parampara system. Those who are actually interested in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna and who follow in the footsteps of Arjun should understand that Krishna not only theoretically presented himself as the Supreme, but actually revealed himself as the Supreme. The Lord gave Arjun the necessary power to see his universal form because he knew that Arjun did not particularly want to see it, as we have already explained. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
One thing comes to mind here is that we're trying very hard to realize that Krishna is God, but the very advanced devotees, they actually forget that Krishna is God. So we have to work very hard to fully realize him in order to eventually forget that he's God. And that forgetfulness, though, is forgetfulness in full knowledge, in the sense that, of course, we have the love we have for him becomes so great that it completely blocks out our awe and reverence mood that we would have towards the divine God. It becomes our friend, our lover, our child, like that.
So that we can have a very intimate relationship with him.
Because love is supreme.
Okay, I guess that's it.
And now I think Kirtan is supreme.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Good. Let's,
Right, we'll see Kirtan, 7 minutes.
Thank you for all the good questions. I hope everybody had some realizations from the comments. Before the kirtan, anybody have a takeaway someone hasn't talked yet, said something, or has talked, but if you haven't talked, a good chance to talk.
Yeah, those two shloks which you recited, Mataji, right? The two different shloks from different things. Those are quoted again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Almost every purpose. Yeah. Yeah.
Any takeaways from the discussion today?
New lights.
Yeah. No need to try to see this whole world. Just see the Shyam Sundar form.
Yeah. Yeah, if you see the lotus feet of Shyam Sundar and Radha Shyam Sundar, you've seen the whole universe.
You have everything, yes.
All right, kirtan. Haribo, speaking of seeing.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama
Haribo.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Nice kirtan. So I hope everyone has a good weekend. And we are doing Harinam Sankirtan in Pullen Park in Raleigh tomorrow at from 3 to 5. If you want to come out and just chant Hare Krishna in a big group, maybe not too big, and the mask requirements are a little bit relaxed, so we don't have to feel so smothered, and it should be fun. So we welcome everybody to come join us, but we'll see you next week or tomorrow. And thank you so much for your association. Haribol. Hare Krishna. Everyone. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.